All right, so I'll do a real brief introduction. I think you guys kind of know, you could probably say it yourself. You know the whole spiel that this is being recorded, and we will share this recording out on the Learning Renewal website. But this one is a little different because it's very much a conversation. Clancy is here to answer questions that you might have. So feel free to turn on your cameras, unmute yourselves, because this one really is based off of your interaction and kind of what questions, comments, all of the above that you have for Clancy.
Thank you, Brittany. It's an honor to be here again. So this is really a time for you to ask strategic questions, whether that's about grant writing, sustainability, engaging students, the location of your food pantry, the name of your food pantry, any type of policies or systems, or even evaluation. So I didn't have anything planned. You should be getting your roadmap. We did put something together, so that was an outcome of us having meetings. So you will, if Amy did not send it out, I will make sure I resend it to her. But we did put together a strategic roadmap so you could go back and look at things that we've discussed that really has a lot of strategies. So it would be great if I could see faces and y'all have questions. That's what I'm here for.
I actually don't have any questions at this time. I just wanted to pop on in case anything somebody else asks is something that I find valuable. We are finally, I've got leadership on board because we have a new president-elect starting in July for a food pantry. I've been, working on food and security initiatives for years, and part of it was funded out of gear and then HERF, and then we did a drive to where employees donated items, and that's how we put boxes together, but it wasn't sustainable. So I really wanted to move to a more sustainable future, but I couldn't do it until we had the right people on board. So
well, congratulations. I hope it all works out. And even if you don't have questions now, you can email me. I would be happy to set up a Zoom or a call with you with any new leadership that might have questions, especially as it relates to the toolkit or anything that we talked about, and any ideas that you've had in some best practices. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thanks. And I appreciate you being available if needed for questions.
Yeah, of course. This is important work. And it shouldn't be hard work, right? It should be easy work, but sometimes it can be really hard. Emotionally and physically and mentally. Any other questions or comments? Y'all are making this too easy for me.
Well, so Clancy, I'll share kind of an experience that I just recently had. So I work for ICSPS, and we're housed at Illinois State University, but we always joke that it's only by name because we don't really interact with university students, but our names and our contact information are shared out on the university website. So it was actually last week, I got a phone call from a student who had a friend that, in his words, had been displaced. And so he was looking for support for him, because he was staying with him, but his landlord had said, hey, he was on the verge of getting evicted himself for having his friend stay there. And so thankfully this is kind of between your webinars and the work that we're doing with ICB for the House Act, and finding supports for students experiencing homelessness and food insecurity. I had the background knowledge to kind of help and guide him. But it was just interesting because I'm like, for a state university to have my name be the one that comes across to them, just kind of, what would be as far as getting that information out to students and really making it easily accessible for them and knowing who to contact for what. But then also being able to have other staff who this might not be, their area of expertise. This might not be the work that they're doing directly with
Mhm.
students, but knowing that and making sure that everyone within your institution, your campus, your college has that baseline knowledge level of where to direct students and kind of how to start that conversation and get that going so that when we do get, those
Mm.
random phone calls, kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, so I first in the roadmap on the very last page, there's a resource called Single Stop. Have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
It's basically a one-stop program that helps individuals with finding resources for food, housing, and economic stability at the college level. I see Crystal shaking her head, so you probably have more experience with this program than I do.
I just actually got it approved to be paid out of this fiscal year, and they are building the tool for Illinois now. I am so excited.
Have you used it? So you haven't used it before.
No, I did a demo with them, but I've done a lot of research on single stop. So not only was it in the House liaison training, the toolkit from the California community colleges, but it was also in on the Department of Ed's website as a valuable tool. And I can tell you that SUNY and New York, those colleges use it. Other colleges in New York use it. They're in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Virginia, California, and Texas. Now they needed somebody to get on board in Illinois in order to be able to build this tool. So I'm hoping that others now will utilize this, but it's a benefits screening tool. So it'll assess them for federal and state benefits that are available. And then it gives them a step-by-step guide on how to do so. It also has something similar to if you've heard of Find Help, where you can look for housing or food resources or help in paying utilities. But instead of it being Find Help, which I don't know much, I mean, I use Find Help, but I know that this single stop is going to vet all the resources that are in this database so that we know that it's current and active. You don't have to worry about, is it something that is shut down? You know that it's current. You also get a portal that you can log into to be able to see if somebody maybe started the screening process but didn't finish it, that you can reach out and nudge them. Would you like to come in, meet with me so we can finish this together? Do you have any questions? And you can export that information in Excel, put it in your CRM or any other information if you want to have it in another place. So I'm just really excited. We actually just got the contract finished end of last week. And we're working on, they're sending over the invoice, and I have a meeting with our single stop representative next week to talk about the timeline and such. But yeah, it's very exciting.
I'm so glad you're here to talk about that. Do you, is it okay if I ask? I'm just curious what the cost would be.
Yeah, so for 1 to 5 users, because that's all we're asking for here. Our community college, we have about 2,800 students. So we only did the 1 to 5 users. I'll be one of them using it, and I'm not sure. There's other people. I'll have to decide like who gets access, but it's 15,000 a year. And since they're building this tool, they're giving us a year from the time that they have all the resources and it's up and running, versus if we do a year from time the contract was signed, then we would be delayed however many weeks or months it takes them to build this. I'm anticipating that they'll probably get it up and running by maybe October, but I haven't met with our rep yet, so I'm not 100% sure. But they're just a really great, so far they've been a great company to work with. If anybody's interested in Jackie's information to set up a demo, I can definitely put it in the chat.
Yeah, so that's really exciting. and that's not too expensive. I'm curious if you're able to use, or if anyone has access to COVID relief money still. And if that could be a funding source.
We don't have any left here.
Mhm.
But luckily, like I said, we have a new president coming on board in July, and I pitched this to her and she was like, let's do it. It makes no sense not to use a proactive tool. So you can use it for prospects, you can use it for current students, but just to have it out there, a lot of times the process is what's overwhelming, whether that's going to college or whether that's applying for benefits. The whole process is overwhelming. So I'm very excited to have something proactive. We've been working with HLC, with their Student Success Academy, trying to build a student success plan. So this feeds into that important work that we're doing as well. Yeah, it's definitely very exciting.
I have another question. I'm like learning. I love this because I get to learn too, right? So from an evaluation standpoint, are they able to evaluate retention?
Well, we would be able to see what students utilize and access reports, and then you could cross-reference that to see if they had a successful semester. So you could say there's a correlation, between the two.
I think that's really, for anyone listening who wants to sell that to administration, if you can prove that or use that as a tool to show that it can track retention rates potentially. I think, when we talked in the webinar about speaking the values and the language of the decision maker, I think that would be something that would have them lean forward pretty quickly. I could be wrong, but I see people shaking their heads. It's your environment, not mine.
I'm also thinking that, for those that have the PATH grant, we didn't use PATH to pay for it, but potentially you could use PATH funding to pay for that. It wouldn't just be a tool for those students, but it definitely would help on the retention aspect, and you could pitch it that way. And yeah, very exciting.
Will you put Jackie's, because I'm probably going to contact
Yes,
Jackie too, and do a
absolutely.
demo, even though maybe I can jump on someone else's demo with you if anyone's doing it, because I think the more we can promote resources like this and help each other, that's where we start filling in the gaps. So thank you, Crystal.
Yep, no problem.
Brittany, the other thing that came to mind too, which would be a lot more expensive than that, that sounds like AI for a social worker, right? But I know some universities and colleges are bringing on social worker positions. And so I don't know if you have that at your school already, but it sounds like this program, Single Stop, is artificial intelligence for a social worker. Not that they're replaceable. My brother was a social worker. Any other questions or even best practices that you can share, or even programs that you might know of that we haven't talked about? I'm definitely gonna copy and pasting Jackie's information. Again, this is time for you to ask questions. It's not necessarily a presentation by me, but it's to dive deeper in anything that you might have had some aha moments about or wanted clarification on.
Yeah, so I have a question about just the grant writing process. I'm new to that environment. So how does one go about initiating that? Is that just a Google search for available grants and you go from there? Or is there like a hub?
Yeah, so great question. I believe it or not, 2 years into this myself. And I had to really, I'm gonna pull up a website. And then if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen. I'm pulling up a certain that I use all the time. It's called guidestar.org. And let me see if I can share my screen now. So what I love, this is like, I think one of the best tips that when I was started out grant writing. So the first thing starting out grant writing, you're going to want to just Google foundations in your, I would say region, maybe your counties. I was told, and I thought it was really great advice, to go after the smaller grants. Now, I was a beginning nonprofit in 2020, and many larger foundations, just so you know, like to have 3 years tax records. So you probably don't have to listen to this. You're bigger institutions than us trying to launch the food dignity movement as a nonprofit. So you can Google foundations. Like I said, I like to start local and have people. And I'm sorry there's noise in the background. When I gave this date, I didn't realize we were on vacation. So I'm actually at the beach and we have kids in the other room because it's raining. Like, it's like the perfect storm. So you might hear some laughter and I apologize. But so what you can do is figure out who your foundations are that you would be applying for. Then what I do is I go on to GuideStar. So I am already logged in. I was doing this today. I do it every day. So let's see what I was looking at. This is a foundation in my area. So I can look at Reading, Pennsylvania. I'm in northeastern Pennsylvania. So this is in my backyard. I click on that and it's a free membership. You don't have to pay. And then I always go to their 990. So you click on their 990 and you pull up their latest 990. And this is like a very complicated, long document. I'm not good with, I don't like numbers and I don't like details. So for me, this is like mind blowing. But if you just keep going down, you will eventually see a page that will tell you exactly what, yes, all 990s of foundations will list who they fund and how much they give. So then you can use this as a guide and say, oh, wow, that looks like they do education and it looks like they give $10,000. So now you have knowledge of what they supported in the past and the amount of money. So you're not, if this was them, we actually just got a $30,000 grant for refrigeration, food as medicine for refrigeration. And I came up with that ask based off of looking at what they typically fund, but also being realistic with what I know my 990 says, right? Because if you're looking at 990s, they're looking at your 990s and they're going to want to see your expenses and what you spend money on. So this is what I would do. So you Google your foundation, then you get their 990 and you gauge what you're gonna ask. And then obviously you will go on their website and there should be an RFP questions and there should be a document that you can download that will be their list of questions. And then it's typically an online form. What I do with their questions, I put them in a Google Doc. So I always have someone else that I'm working with. I might be in the document, she might be in it at another time, but we list the questions and eventually you're going to be copying and pasting the same answers. But and then we save that Google Doc. So then we know exactly what our answers were. We just copy and paste, put it in the form, and we keep another file showing exactly what we asked for and how we answered the questions. Hopefully I answered your question. That was kind of.
Yes. No, that's good information. All good.
Okay. I could, but this I think is probably the best kept secret, and knowledge is power instead of blindly going in. And if you know what they have funded in the past, not only what they're funding, but who and the geography of, and so you can see Pennsylvania and Connecticut. So if I was in New Jersey, probably wouldn't be applying for them because it would be a waste of my time.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
That's all good.
But keep in mind, remember now when you get the roadmap, you're going to have all these other things that you could do workforce development. So it's not just education, right?
Right.
Okay. There's like all kinds of how, especially if you're going after food insecurity, how do you separate yourself from the local food bank? Because if you're going after United Way or someone like that, they're going to say, just go to the food bank and get food. That's who we fund. So, I like to see diversity too when I look at this. Yes, there are some food banks here, but there's also other places. So they're not strictly food bank supporting. That's important because there will be funders that will say, we're 100% feeding America, go talk to them. So you have to separate. I'm going to stop sharing unless anyone has any other questions or want clarification on that. That was a fun one.
I had a question.
Sure.
I was interested in, it sounded like you were partnering with maybe local small farms or agricultural corporations or something like that to get food. What's the nuts and bolts of that look like? As far as I have an existing food pantry at our college, but I don't think we do anything like that. So I was curious what that was looking like. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll be honest. It's been, so where that stemmed from was I noticed that our local food bank was serving moldy corn from Mexico in August in Pennsylvania. And it just blew my mind. Like, why are we investing this money, that state, national and local taxpayer money, into end of life produce versus our farmers? And it's been an uphill battle because I'm challenging the status quo in my local area. There's people who really do like me, and then there's people who do not like me, right? Because I'm challenging that status quo. We have gone to our Farmers Bureau in the state of Pennsylvania. I've been in Harrisburg, which is our capital, sitting down, having meetings, having these difficult conversations. I've been meeting with my legislative elected officials, my congressmen, and we are looking at now a statewide proposal. So it's been me rocking a boat. We have been, in order to have that 3-year partnership, I've gone after very small foundations. I mean, 5,000, 10,000 here. It has to be people that are not aligned with Feeding America, because again, that's where my barriers were. That's where my walls were. So I've been using a lot of food as medicine terminology in my grant writing for this and support. And the other thing is supporting local ag. So not to make this about politics, but typically hunger is very, I guess, liberal leaning, democratic leaning, where I can tell you now, I can go up to any Republican and talk to them about hunger relief from this lens that we are investing back into our local agriculture. We're supporting local farmers, and they love this. Every Republican's like, I can get behind this. Every Democrat that I've been talking to, they can get behind it. And now they're starting to have meetings and talk about hunger relief. So it's very magical, I think, but I had to prove a concept. And in that process, we did not ever ask that farmer to donate. We pay them their wholesale pricing. They give us a price and we pay it. And in that process, we're also talking about Roland's is they have greenhouses in the winter. It's hydroponic. They will sell greens, so salad and kale year round. In the winter, they stop selling to restaurants because they need additional grow lights. So those are the conversations that we're also bringing to the table when we're grant writing. What does this look like? By investing in our local farmer, we're putting back into our agriculture, we're putting back into our economy, but we're also helping that farmer sell more, make more money, be more sustainable in the winter. So now she doesn't have to quit her second job in the winter. They can buy extra grow lights and they can continue to sell to restaurants, not just their lettuce CSA, which is community support agriculture. So when we do this, it's not just about getting produce to fight hunger, right? So we're bringing all these other narratives in, which makes us more compelling and more people want to be a part of it. And so I think it's the language that you use, and remember to separate yourself from Feeding America. I think there's a place for Feeding America, but there's also a place for this. And the more we can support and invest back into our local agriculture, and so it's not just produce, we actually, we are serving PA beef. So I don't want to offend anyone, but we had 2 cows harvested to fight hunger, and we have 2 more in August, and we're serving steak, we're serving brisket, like we have the whole cow. We're working with a Latinx, Latino population and making tongue tacos, and a BIPOC population doing liver and onions. So it's pretty exciting that we're able to use PA agriculture as a whole. So that's pork, it's chicken, it's eggs, it's milk, and it's produce. And what does that whole piece look like? So I hope I answered that, but to start, we went after those small things that did not, the small 5,000, 10,000 there, use language as food as medicine. And then we started to bring the voice of the farmer and what that sustainability looks like, but even more of their voice of, we call it soldier farming, and it's not something I made up. It was something I heard in Chicago. Someone stood up at some think tank I was at and said, we need to stop soldier farming. And that hit me like a ton. I got it. I don't know if what I got was what she was talking about. But again, that's asking farmers to glean or to donate their produce, their livelihood. And farmers are big-hearted people, and they will do that. Now, when I talk to a farmer, I'm like, no, I want to pay you a fair price. Like, what is your price? And they still will take a double take because they're so used to being asked to donate. That was very long-winded, but it's been a process, right? So I think we're in our 4th year of doing that. And that just shows you how it evolved, and even the conversations that evolved to the point we just now received funding, COVID relief, ARPA funding, $500,000 to invest in PA agriculture. And so now we're really bringing that narrative. And through my speaking money, we're actually hiring we're doing a short series of a documentary series where we're going to bring the stories of the farmers and how their challenges that they have and how they're closing down, to bring awareness to that. So anyways, I see there's a training for toolkits. So thank you for that. Oh, a single stop. Thank you, Crystal. So I hope, Anna, I answered your question. That was a lot.
No, that was great. But I have one probably stupid question, and I was a little late. Maybe you answered it, but what does PA stand for?
Oh, Pennsylvania. I'm from Pennsylvania.
Okay, thank you. I was like, is that a
I don't know if we're like the only
jargon.
That is funny. And we might be one of the only states that refer to us as our little letters, right? I don't know if you probably don't say that. You probably just say Illinois, right? Yeah, that's funny. I didn't realize that, but we probably are one of the few states that we never say our name. We just say PA. But I hope that you start investing in your local farmers.
Well, I was just going to say, we live in an area. Rockford is a fairly, probably mid-sized city, but we're surrounded by farming communities, right? I live in Boone County, right next door to Winnebago, where Rockford is, and it's a lot of farms. So I feel like we are situated in a place that might be well suited for something like this. So.
And you're also in Chicago, the homeland of Feeding America. So one, I would look into what they are doing. It could be different than Pennsylvania, right? We have the Port of Philadelphia, where we're bringing in all this produce for I think states through the Feeding America network. I know that Feeding America has been instrumental in trying to be creative and helping farmers. So you might actually have more chance in getting money because you're in Illinois versus me, right, in Pennsylvania. So I would see what kind of innovation grants that they have. You're also like, oh my gosh, if I lived in Illinois, is it Illinois or Illinois?
No
Out
S.
west, still just Illinois.
Illinois.
But people say Illinois, which is fine. It has an S on it. So
Okay, Illinois. So if I lived in Illinois, I would say Illinois all the time. But then I would be going after, I would be looking at my national, look at all the national associations in Chicago. Like you have National Feeding America, you have National Dairy Council. I think the Academy of Pediatrics, like all these people who have a stakeholder in hunger. And yes, they are national, but you're in their state. And if you were in Chicago, I would totally be knocking on their doors, getting them to come visit. And yeah. Anyways, that's what I would do. Another way also going after funding too, one of the things that we're doing, just so thinking outside the box, right? So we're working with PA ranchers, cattle ranchers in Pennsylvania. So I contacted the National Beef Association and I'm how about culturally appropriate recipes? And are you willing to sponsor this? And we're buying cows to fight hunger. And so we have a call in July. I don't know how that is going to end up, but think about how to strategically place what you're doing that's going to help leverage the outcome of another program. So now that we have this beef, the ground beef, we're strictly buying McCormick spices. I don't have a contract with McCormick spices, but guess what we're going to do? We're going to take a lot of pictures. We're going to send it to them and I'm going to go after McCormick. I'm sure there's a McCormick Foundation, right? There's some kind of corporate giving there, I believe. That's like the mentality that we do all the time is how do we showcase? And I start showcasing before we ever even start the partnership. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
How many people have refrigeration in their food pantry? We've had a food pantry for probably about 6 years.
Mhm.
And so initially it started off donations from faculty and staff. Then some faculty and staff started to do like payroll giving. We now have a community donor that has given us quite a bit, a retired individual who just really loves to donate to our cause. And then we do have a grant from the United Way, but right now all we have are non-perishables. I talked to the health department. They gave me an application about that thick to fill out to get refrigeration. And I'm not sure, to be really honest, that everyone who's in leadership on campus is crazy about that idea. It's kind of like, well, this could go wrong or that could go wrong. So I kind of let it go for a while, but I'd really like to be able to pursue refrigeration.
Yeah. Okay. So when I started volunteering at our food pantry, I wanted refrigeration. And my board kept saying that, what did they call it? An accessory. They kept saying it was an accessory. I'm like, no, it's an asset. And it took me it was a 2-year fight for me to get them to spend $7,000 on the smallest walk-in cooler. Then what did I do is I had interns, so you can have students keep track of all the food that goes in and out. And we put a USDA price using USDA pricing, but also our local grocery store pricing. So if I got green peppers, what did it cost at Price Chopper, and what would be the USDA price? And then at the end of that year, we showed that we were able to have over $100,000 worth of free food that we did not have to buy go through the doors of the refrigeration. So right there, we just equated that to money and how much more food. And obviously it's healthier food. I should say more nourishing food. So that was a way to show that. So no one, and then also, and this could be something I could share with you, right? Like, so I could even help have this conversation with you. But the other thing is the biggest challenge, they kept saying, well, it's going to break down. What happens when it breaks down? And okay, that walk-in cooler we had for like 6 years, I'm no longer there. The only thing we ever had to pay for was the winterization because it was outside. And that was one time. I never had any other issues. So you want to buy brand new and have warranty, obviously, but so refrigeration, what you can do for funding is I would go right now to your EPA website, Environmental Protection Agency, because they just had a ton of money in I think every state with food recovery to reduce landfill, right? So then we put in a grant, I think it was like 50,000 for, and it's infrastructure to reduce food waste. So refrigeration counts as infrastructure to reduce food waste, because if you're getting food from a food bank, most likely that food, remember, end of life produce from the Mark of Philadelphia, that is giving us wasted food that we would eventually have to throw away anyways because you couldn't serve it. But the idea is that it's getting rid of it's saving food from going to the landfill. So that is a perfect EPA infrastructure grant. The other thing is go after your regional dairy associations, not necessarily national dairy, but every region. And y'all will have, Illinois will have the same local region. I don't know if it's probably Midwest Dairy. I would reach out to them and even say, oh, I was on a webinar with Clancy. And she was talking about how we need to get milk into our food pantries because it's the most requested item. National research shows it's the most requested item. It's the least donated because they don't have refrigeration. Your regional dairy associations have been known to help people get refrigeration because they want milk in there. And just back information, Feeding America, I believe, has committed with National Dairy to have 10% of total food be dairy. So if they are going to do that, and National Dairy and Feeding America are going to partner, you have to have refrigeration for that to come to fruition. So if that's their big goal, they need to start supporting your refrigeration. So I would go after your regional dairy first, go after Feeding America, even look up that goal, right? Look up at that commitment. They were just at the sustainability conference in Chicago announcing this. What's her name? From National Dairy. Oh my gosh, she has blonde hair, like whitish blonde hair. Katie Brown. She was on stage talking about this. So you can look that up at the sustainability con. You could even say that I told you. So I do a lot of speaking. I'm a spokesperson for dairy. And I know that that's a very important outcome. Other things that you could do is if you have a grocery store, I don't know what your chains are, but if you think of like the Kroger's or the Albertsons, the Safeway, stuff like that, they have a big food recovery program, and they also have a lot of funding, especially Albertsons and Kroger's and Albertsons are together. So they do a lot with food as medicine, but also food recovery. So I would look into them. But again, you can start with those small local grants, and all of these from food waste to food as medicine, all that plays a role, because how are you going to get nutrient rich, non-perishable foods in unless you have refrigeration? And I can tell you, it depends on who you're getting your food from, but what I've learned is that the most important piece was the freezer, because it helped. I was able to keep frozen meats and proteins, where the produce we would try to get in and get out constantly. So I think it just depends on what you need, but you definitely need freezer and refrigeration. I hope I answered your question.
Oh, for sure. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
I can talk a lot. But if you have any questions, email me.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And you might, I don't know if National Cattlemen's Association, if they are supporting that yet. I know it's big for dairy, but if you are going to get beef products or pork products, which you will from your food bank, go after those associations. I know their checkoff is trying to make a big statement of the health of pork. So that could be someone, because I think they're just trying to get as big as beef and dairy. I would reach out. I'd probably reach out to pork. Just, I don't know much about them except that they're hiring a bunch of dietitians now to to do work, so they might have an interest in this. Any other questions? Here.
Okay, I have another one.
Sure.
No, I can't remember if it was after this or maybe like one of the house liaison Zooms, but I had a thought, and I know some other colleges are doing this. So I talked to my department dean and VP about getting students having the ability to purchase food cards through their financial aid so that they can have a hot meal on their break. I mean, we have the food pantry, but and also like my job, part of my job is that I oversee our wellness room, and I keep like a miniature food pantry in there. So students can come and grab snacks or things that they can like heat up, but that's still not the same as being able to go over, and get a hot meal and, sit there with your friends and that kind of thing. So I think that the college is on board with it. They were supposed to, cabinet was supposed to talk about it, vote on it yesterday. I volunteered to go to that meeting. I was told I didn't need to go. So that was a little concerning for me because I thought, oh no, is anybody really going to be there to kind of advocate for this to like, yes, let's do this, because it is obviously a little bit extra work for a couple of different departments. But that meeting got canceled. So I'm just wondering if anybody has any tips on pursuing this kind of thing. And then once it's in place, like how it works for your college, what like financial aid's idea was that we would house those food cards in the bookstore, and then students could go there and charge them to their financial aid, and then they could be used at our cafe on campus. And that's really kind of as far as we've gotten it. But if anybody has any ideas or tips or tricks or tips, this is a whole new thing for us. So I want it to be an easy process so that we keep doing it, assuming it gets approved.
I want to hold space if anyone is doing something similar, because there's more experts in this area.
We're not doing that. I have pitched the idea a couple of times myself to our financial aid person, and was basically told it's possible, but it's a process. So I'm kind of just waiting a little bit since I've gotten all these other things lately. I'm waiting to push this again, but I did find this yesterday on JJC's website, and I just put it in the chat. It sounds like they do the same type of process, where it sounds like it would go through the bookstore. And, at the end of the semester, anything remaining on the balance is just done in a refund check. So I don't know if that will help you, maybe reaching out to somebody at JJC to get more details on how they're doing it.
What you just shared, I actually copied and borrowed from their website.
Oh.
To my administration and financial aid last week. So, but I haven't actually talked with anyone at JJC about it. So that might be something I need to do, especially if they come back and say, well, we've decided not to do this, or it's going to be, too many steps or whatever. Because I think it's important, and I think it's something we could probably do. And part of my reasoning is that I'm in Southern Illinois in a super rural area, and there's a McDonald's up the road, which, whatever, but like, that's it for 15 miles one way or the other. So, in terms of accessibility, if you're on a 30-minute break or an hour break, like, that's an issue too,
I had good luck. I did a Zoom with somebody at JJC, and I can look for her contact information. She actually works in their foundation area and runs the Empty Bowls project. So I'll look for her contact information. If you throw your email address in the chat, I'll get it over to you, because she might be a good person to connect with. And she would know the right person at JJC that can get you more information.
I'll put my info in the chat, and then Kendra just shared dfisc@jjc.edu. So is that you, Kendra? Or is that?
Yes, sorry. I'm trying to find our webpage where we share this information as well to share. We do the exact same thing as JJC. Deanna, that I shared her contact, she was the director here, and I was under her. Now I'm the director. So she basically copied it forward over to JJC. I'm just trying to find where we actually say it on our website so I can share that with you so you can use that. But we actually have a limit on the food card purchases for financial aid. To currently it's $4 $50 food cards per term, which comes out to $200 per term. We can obviously adjust that if a student needs it. We just had to put something kind of in place, some controls in place, to try and help students not overspend or buy for their friends or this and that, and to try to have a little bit of control over it. But if a student came to us and said, hey, I still need more food cards, then we could waive that rule in the system. But yeah, we do the same thing as JJC.
Okay, that's
I'm
good.
gonna try to find the website and put it in the chat in just a minute here.
Okay, thank you. And that's good to know because I know that was one of the concerns that our financial aid department had. They were like, I don't know if we can do this. And I'm like, you can because JJC's doing it. And they're like, but how are they doing it? And I'm like, I don't know exactly how. This is all I've, found at this point. But that was one of their concerns was limitations. So I'll share that with them, that other colleges are putting that limit because I think that's just always a concern that students aren't going to manage their financial aid well, so.
I don't know much about JJC. Are they using Swipe Out Hunger as the platform or are they doing this independently? Does anyone know?
I'm not sure. We have cards here at KCC that we use internally. We don't go through a certain program for those. I can find out. And
no.
Email.
Yeah, no, I was just, because that's just one, just so you know that there is a program called Swipe Out Hunger. So you might want to, they might give you talking points on their website, but it is sharing cards, students being able to share, donate their meals to other students. And so you might want to look up that website and it might just give you talking points, or it might just be another resource or just proof that this is needed and it's working. I'm going to put their website in the chat. So it just might just be extra documentation as well. And I'm sure they do research, I believe, and have some information. So it could just be supporting documentation. This is all great stuff. And I pulled up, so JJC is another college, a local college. Nice. All right, any other questions? I think this is also a really great opportunity for y'all to be able to brainstorm and help each other too.
Okay, I'm gonna pipe in real quick and just
Yeah.
ask if, oh, I can turn my video on, I just realized. Sorry if my blinds like blind you. I'm still trying to find on our website, so I'm like disconnected. So we have what's called student success navigators here. We're basically like our retention specialists, and we work with them. So by we, it's myself as the financial aid director. It's over financial aid and student engagement, which includes our EDI center, our food pantry and student life, and then our success navigators. So we've come together to create a resource event the second week of classes in the fall. It's scheduled for August 31st. And this is, I don't know if it's the first time the college has done it in 50 years, but we're doing it in an effort to try to share resources with our students to make them aware of the food pantry. And in the conversations of planning this event, we found My Pantry Express. Are you familiar with them?
I'm not. Is anyone else? I'm writing it down.
It's like amazing or too good to be true. One of our success navigators found them and reached out to them to have them come to our resource event. But basically, you sign up with them as a location, and they have it's like an online grocery order where they list all the things that they have. The students, can anonymously, well, anonymous to college, but they can go on there. We just share the link and share the resource, and the students can go on there and they can place their order. And then it tells them, okay, we'll be at KCC on August 31st. You can pick up your order. And it's just like a RV or something that's refrigerated that comes in, and they just go up and they get the order, they put it in their cart. And it's like, it seems so easy. We haven't done it yet, but we're gonna check it out. And if all goes well, we would like to have them come twice a month, possibly. That's the goal, I think, to where students can consistently get refrigerated or frozen food and fresh produce, because we only have like the non-perishables in our food pantry. So we were talking about refrigeration resources and all of that earlier, and we just have like a mini fridge type. It's bigger than a mini fridge, but it's not very big. So we were looking at some other options to get those nutrient rich foods to students, and this is what we came across. So just wanted to share that. Wasn't sure if anybody had heard of them, but we are in Kankakee, Illinois, just south of Chicago. So yeah.
My pantry, so that would be regional for your area, I would think. I'm gonna have to look it up. I've never heard of it.
I don't,
But that
again,
does
I
sound-
don't know. It's new to me. It might just be in Illinois, or in this part of Illinois, but I think they're based, I can't even remember what town.
Northern Illinois Food Bank. It's sponsored by the Northern Illinois Food Bank.
So I just wonder if there's other similar organizations that have.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And we're like, are you sure? Like, there's no cost. It's like, it seems too good to be true, but it's amazing. So.
Yeah, there's, it looks like My Pantry Express locations pick up in the following locations. So I put the link in there, so you'll be able to see some of the locations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they even said like, you can sign up to be a location too. I don't know how far out they go, how far out they travel, but there isn't anybody in the Kankakee area at all utilizing them. So we would be the first in our county to utilize them. So we would then be potentially added as one of their locations in the future if we continue.
Yeah, I think this is amazing. And I think this is just like another example of the fact that you're in Illinois. So Feeding America will probably have more of these investment projects. If it's sponsored by the food bank, I think this is really interesting. So thank you for sharing that. And I think the other tip too is for you all to get on your Feeding America Food Bank's website and just see what their grassroots programs are. So you're not just looking at for food pantries, you're looking at grassroots efforts. So for example, we have this would be an example, right? My Food Pantry Express or My Pantry Express is an example. Locally, we have something called Mama Bird, and she delivers to moms and children. So she does try to focus on college students as well. And she delivers diapers, hygienic products for women, and food. And so, but if you can get on your local, and maybe they don't have them listed, usually they have, a food bank will have all of their they're called member agencies. They're not necessarily called food pantries. They'll have their member agencies listed. If they don't, then what I would do is get in contact with and it could be a different name, but locally, ours is called the member agency liaison. So it's someone who signs up new members. If you can have a phone call with that person's obviously going to know who their member agencies are. And you could say, what are the grassroots efforts in my area that would help us source food or serve our client population, like Mama Bird, right? You would be able to refer that service out to someone just like you could refer this. So your Feeding America food bank should have a list of all of those grassroots, where I wouldn't know that because I'm in Pennsylvania. So thank you so much, Kendra, for sharing that. I think that's really great information to know. Well, what I can do is I can put my email in the chat. That way, if you do have questions, you can reach out to me. Especially like, so if you're going to administration about refrigeration or something and you just want help with navigating the challenges that they might have, or questions, or the barriers that they keep bringing up. I mean, I can help navigate that with you. Or if something else comes up that you have questions on, you can always reach out. We will, if you didn't receive it, we did put together, like I said, the roadmap. So it's just different subjects around this with strategies. We'll make sure that you have that as pretty much a synopsis of everything that we've been talking about.
And I'm also going to put in the chat, I know some of you had mentioned some of the house webinars that we have been doing. So we have the House Summit coming up at the end of June. So I'm going to put the registration link in there if you've not been able to register for that. You know, a lot of times we know that when it comes to food insecurity, that goes in line with, you know, experiencing homelessness or not having reliable housing. And so the House Summit is really looking at ways to support the House liaisons that you all should have within your community colleges at this point. We'll have some speakers from the state come, provide some professional development, have time to have some table discussions and share out what other institutions are doing. So if you have not registered, I would highly suggest that you do. It is in person. There is no virtual option, and it will not be recorded in any way. So if you are able to attend in person, please join us. I think it'll be a wonderful day. And so Clancy, thank you so much for the webinars and for the information. I have a feeling you're going to be getting some emails from some folks continuing the conversation. So we really appreciate your time, especially while you're on vacation. And so hopefully the rain will pass over and you'll be able to get out and enjoy with your kiddos.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
So Dina, anything you would like to add as far as learning renewal or how?
Well, actually, yeah, this wraps up the learning renewal series that we've been doing for the last year. But yes, I would also encourage those of you who have the availability to attend the House Summit. And also just to let you know, I know some of you are, you know, working on this through learning renewal. Some of you are benefits navigators, house liaisons. You know, there's a lot of roles on your campus, and we are working to provide more support to you in the coming academic year. So just be on the lookout for invitations to convenings. I feel like a lot of what worked really well throughout this whole series, Clancy's amazing and brought lots of great ideas, but you all shared really good ideas with each other as well. So be on the lookout for those events that we're going to be hosting, and, you know, come and share and learn from your colleagues. So I just appreciate you all being here today. And Clancy, thank you so much for such a great series.
Well, thank you.